It is late August and I've got a little bit of a problem with the garden. It's a common problem, all gardeners have it, and it is a great problem to have, but it needs a solution. The problem is, what do I do with all of these beans? What am I supposed to do with these cucumbers? What do I do with this? Actually, I just made a video showing you what to do with this. And I eat these every day, but it's still a lot. The carrots aren't really a problem. You may not know this, but carrots will actually stay good for months. So don't worry about carrots. If you buy carrots in the store, you can throw them in your fridge and forget about them. They're the most reliable vegetable to never go bad. But they are here for flavor support for this monstrosity. I even picked a couple more today. So what do you do when you have an overabundance in your garden? Sometimes you just give it away. I have shared a lot of my produce with my neighbors. I've shared some of it with my community. I joined a foodie group. I gave away a lot of the mushrooms I can't eat. And that's a great way to reduce the amount you have. But I also like to preserve because I like to think that I'm growing for all-round healthy eating. And I'm also really proud of the hard work that I put into what I grow. So I want to use a lot of it. I don't want to just let it go to other people. I want to enjoy what I worked for. So let's talk preservation today. There's a lot of ways you can preserve your produce. The easiest way, throw it in a bag and put it in the freezer. Almost every vegetable freezes well. The only thing I haven't seen freeze well are some of my dragon tongue beans. That's these yellow purpley ones in there. They get a little watery, but the green beans freeze perfectly. My shishito peppers freeze amazingly. Tomatoes, great thing to do with tomatoes is to freeze them because when you thaw them, it actually pulls the skin off, and that's great for making sauces and soups. So that is the simplest, cheapest way. But there are a number of ways that you can preserve food. You can add a fat. So this is compound butter. This is where a lot of my chives went this year. It's delicious. But you can also make oils. Now, if you make an herb oil, please put it in the refrigerator. Do not leave it out because it can cause the botulism. So just refrigerate it if you put it in a fat. You can also make a sauce. This is cayenne pepper and mango hot sauce. And I used a bunch of apple cider vinegar, and now it is the consistency of jelly. I'm not mad about it. You can add sugar, and then you can also add pectin, and you can either make a jelly or you can make some sort of syrup. This is the last of my very precious elderflower cordial. It is delicious. When my elderberry bushes were blooming, I took a couple of the flower heads and I boiled them with lemon and made this fantastic thing that you mix with sparkling water, especially a lemon lime Waterloo. Go get that seltzer. And it makes this delicious syrupy drink. You can start to get real homesteady and do canning. I also do this, where you add the ingredients. Now this has a lot of vinegar and a little bit of salt, and it also has sugar. So all of those ingredients, salt, sugar, acid, kill and remove the ability for bacteria to utilize oxygen so that these will stay good and definite. This does not live in my fridge, it lives on my shelf. So I've been doing a little bit of canning as well. You can also invest in a food dehydrator. I just made a video on how to dehydrate tomatoes to make sun-dried tomatoes. This is a little more time investment, but it's pretty easy. You just leave it running, and as long as you don't mind a loud white noise machine going on in the background, then this is a really good preservation technique too. I do it for my herbs, I did it for my mushrooms. It's awesome. But today, I don't want to run my stove, and I still want to pickle some things. So I'm going to make some ferments. These are some fermented pickles that I made just a couple days ago, actually. Now, ferments don't stay good on a shelf. You do need to refrigerate them once the fermentation process is done. They will stay good for about 6 months if you do all the right things. But they are an easier way of making pickles, and they're pretty safe as long as you do everything by the letter. And this is how you make probiotic-filled pickles, which is lovely. You may not know this, but you don't need to eat yogurt to get your probiotics. You can get them from fermented products. So sauerkraut is another pickled vegetable. Kosher sour pickles, which is kind of what I did here. I made kind of a sour dill pickle. Those have probiotics. and you can pickle any vegetable you want as a ferment. That's what's great. It's very versatile, very easy process. So here are the bare bones basics of making a ferment. Step 1, you need to make a 2% brine. How do we make brine? Well, you need some non-chlorinated, non-iodized salt. So I picked up some sea salt. It's nothing but salt. You can also use kosher salt, and you can also use pickling salt. Then you need non-chlorinated water. So I don't have that in my taps. And filtered water, if you have a water filter in your home, like my fridge is filtered water, that doesn't really work. You can buy distilled water. I was impatient, so I used what I had in the house. This is non-chlorinated water. You need to use non-chlorinated water because you need to make sure there's nothing in the water that's going to kill the beneficial bacteria that will ferment the vegetables you're using. To make your 2% brine, you just need 1 tablespoon of your salt and then 4 cups of your non-chlorinated water. Once that's added, you see all that salt accumulated, you're just going to stir until it's out of there. From there, you actually don't need to do anything else. If you want to just use brine and the vegetables, that's it. I recommend starting with these jars that have a little taper at the top. When I did my first ferment, what they had us do was they had us pack our jar so tightly, like jamming vegetables in there until nothing could move, and then just pouring the brine over the top. The reason they had us do this is because the vegetables not being able to move meant that they couldn't float to the top. Because when you ferment something, you do not want the vegetables to be exposed. No oxygen. If there's oxygen, things like mold, bad bacteria can start to grow. That's the most basic thing. If you want to start getting into more complicated things, I'm at like level 2, and I think my friend is at like level 5 because he has these special fermentation caps. They have straws that allow for air to escape. At level 2, I have wide mouth jars. And then I just bought these little glass weights with a handle, and they're gonna hold my vegetables under the brine. I'm gonna pack this jar, and I'll just give you a few tips afterwards. All right, here are my packed jars. Now, I tried very hard. I didn't do so well with the pickles, but I measured very well trying to keep it below this line. Now, this is the jars with the brine on it, and I'm gonna take my weight, and I'm just gonna lower it down on top. It might overflow a little. That's okay, we're on a paper towel. There we go. It should just fit snugly like that. That is to keep everything under the water and airtight. I had to remove a few of the cucumbers because it just was not working, but these should be level. And honestly, my jars are a little overfilled because the brine is already overrun. And the reason I say that is because when you ferment something, it gets fizzy and then it overflows. And that's it. You screw the lids on and you make it so it's, not too tight, but tight enough to keep the lids down. And then you let this sit at room temperature for 4 to 5 days. At the end of 4 to 5 days, you will have a fermented product. Put it in the fridge. It is done. So with these little glass lids, you can see everything is kept nicely under the water, which means no oxygen is exposed to the vegetables. So any oxygen-friendly bacteria should die, and the beneficial bacteria that creates a fermented probiotic product is going to take over. Things to look out for. You will see bubbles. It will get a little fizzy. You might see some foam on the top. That's all normal. It might get a little cloudy. That's also normal. Not normal things. If it smells bad, if mold grows, if anything looks like it's floating around in a kind of colorful way, like if something turns orange or green or blue, throw that away. That is no longer good. But a little bit of like cloudiness in the brine, totally normal part of fermentation. Also normal, open the lid every 1 to 2 days and burp your ferments. Also, keep it on this paper towel because it might overflow. But it's fun. It creates a probiotic food. It has a nice, pleasant, sour taste, and it should be a good experience. So if you want to give it a shot, tell me how it went.